I'd just like to sort of say how I became interested in water and how I noticed that there was a problem, because I think most people living in Cambridge, you just use your water. In the summer it's hot, you go out in the garden, you run your hose and you don't really think about it. But what happened in 2019 was that we had a drought, and I noticed that the trees were starting to look autumnal at the beginning of September. And I'd previously lived in Bahrain, and I knew somebody who was a hydrogeologist, and he told me that what happened in Bahrain was it was a beautiful island oasis. And then it was the very first place where they discovered oil. And obviously when they discovered oil, the population grew, they built a town, and where did they get their water from? Well, it doesn't rain very much, of course they pumped it from the aquifer. And the result was that initially all the natural streams dried up, and then all the trees died, because the trees also rely on the water moving upwards through capillary action to their roots. And I noticed that in 2019, a lot of the trees, the leaves were drying around the outside. It wasn't like autumnal colour, it was different. And that rang alarm bells. I thought, there must be a problem here. And when I started researching, I discovered that sure enough, the river people already knew. And so I kind of initially teamed up with the river people, and I started asking a lot of questions. And that was the beginning of my journey into activism and campaigning on water.
So, sorry, could you say your name and something about yourself, just very briefly?
Hello, I'm Tony Gorin, and I used to work for the Environment Agency till 2005 when everything was being deregulated in respect of water. It's a great film, covered everything except for one little thing. If we've got plenty of water, we're in a water-rich area despite the low rainfall. So if you go home and search Anglian Water Affinity AMP8, you'll see that there's currently a consultation going on about moving 17 million litres of water a day from the Ely Ouse to somewhere near Stansted. Prior to that, in 1968, a long time ago, the Ely Ouse to Essex Water Act, 68, came into force, and that enabled over 200 million litres a day of water to be pumped from the Ely Ouse near Denver through the little cut-off channel that you saw on the map to reservoirs in Essex, about 150 kilometres. That was doubled in, some of you might remember Great Bradley being proposed as another site for a reservoir, which they fought, and then instead of that, the amount permitted for pumping from the Ely Ouse was doubled. You can find that all online. If you look at Great Bradley, there's an article about it. So I'm just trying to make the point that water stress isn't caused by water itself, it's caused by just totally mad, bad management. And that's really all I want to say.
Okay, thanks. Do you want to say something, Tony, about this being a water-rich area?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I mean, we are in the driest part of the country, but there's still lots and lots of water. I mean, if anyone's been out recently past Ely and looked at the Ouse washes, you'll see lots and lots of water flowing out into the wash. So it's a matter of capturing that water and using it efficiently. Of course, from the water company's point of view, if they can take water from under the ground, that water has spent a long time percolating through the chalk. There's very few impurities in that water. It might be some nitrogen that's got in through fertilisers, but essentially it's very pure water. Whereas when water is allowed to flow through into reservoirs, then that water is going to need to be treated much more, and that means it's going to be much more expensive.
Yes, Ian.
Can everybody hear me? All right?
Well, you're going to get a microphone, just because there's some recording going on.
Fantastic film, Tony. Funny, glad to see it and everything. My name's Ian Webb. I work for the Cambridgeshire Wildlife Trust, and I've known South Cambridgeshire waterways for most of my life. I'm nearly 50, you wouldn't believe it. I'd just like to say we really need to have a fundamental change in the way we value water. It's the second most important element for life. The first one being oxygen, obviously, but we don't treat it like that. I have a little bugbear that I have. If I gave you your last bucket of fresh water, what would you do with it? Would you flush the toilet with it? That's my main thing. We combine three valuable resources to produce one problem. And I think the basic, from this angle of it anyway, is to look at a means of taking those feces and urine and keeping them away from water. Because once you mix it with water, you've got a problem with energy, money, pollution, all these problems exacerbated by low flows. Every time you flush a toilet, you're polluting a river because that flow from the sewage works increases nitrogen, phosphates in the river. That was my little bugbear, and I think it needs to be discussed more. We are so privileged in this country to have fresh water coming out of the tap really quite cheaply. And there are people around, the majority of the population of the world don't have that. And I think once people recognise the value of water, then hopefully people should start paying for that. No, the idea of the 80 litres cheaply and after that loads, I think that's a great idea. Anyway, thank you Tony for the film, thank you friends of CAM and everybody else who's here, and really make the effort yourselves to think about water, but also pressurise those other people around you, but more than just writing letters to your MP, I feel. A bit more action needed.
Yeah, okay. Well, you keep saying that, Ian, but we haven't quite done it yet. But we're going to do it. Can you pass the microphone?
Oh, hello. My name is Christina, and I'm just a citizen, and I'm concerned. I'm also a teacher, and I think it would be fabulous if you made a short version of this film to show in schools, at assemblies. I don't know if you've considered that idea. That's all I wanted to say.
Tony?
Yeah, thanks for that, Christina. At the moment, we're very keen to get the film out into schools and into colleges. Hadn't thought of producing a short version, but that's certainly something that could be on the cards. But if anybody is interested in arranging a screening, then please get in touch.
There we go. Ian.
Yeah, excellent film, Tony, fantastic. Gets all the key points across. Just a bit concerned that there's this emphasis on consumers saving water. Yes, that's important, but that sort of pales into insignificance before is it 40,000 houses that are planned, or 250,000 if we listen to Michael Gove. It's sort of shifting the blame onto local residents. I'm not saying you're doing that, but it's something Anglican Water uses. Don't mind us over abstracting the aquifer. Use the hippo in your toilet system and all will be well, or collect your rainwater. Yes, it helps, but it says on there it's 15%. So it is down to the water companies, pure and simple. We can make a small contribution, but it is entirely, I would say, almost entirely the water company's fault, and those driving the growth in Cambridge. We need to question why. Who is actually in charge of the city? If 40,000 houses can be built, do you want them? Who benefits from that? Does anybody here benefit from 40,000 new homes in Cambridge? I don't think so. So why is it being built? Follow the money.
Yes, I think that's something, Ian, that a lot of people would totally agree with. I think there is a kind of contradiction here when people see they're being told to use less water, not to water their garden, not to take power showers, all sensible, in terms of saving water, yes. But then they also see lots of planning permissions being put through, and hotels with power showers and whatever and things, and people think, well, how am I, saving my little bit in the garden when I'm seeing all these very big developments being passed? There's a gap between it's like do as I tell you, but I'm not going to do that myself kind of thing. And a lot of people will take that on board. And then there's also the other side of it is that, you know, we have this fantasy thing coming through with potentially 250,000 houses for this area. And we're not just talking about the sort of numbers of houses that Tony's talked about. Let's cut to the crunch here. 250,000 houses. What's your take on that, Tony?
Well, I think, like most people in this room, it's complete nonsense. I mean, there's barely enough water for us at the moment. Adding, you know, another 50,000 would put enormous pressure on the water resources here. I mean, we'd certainly see the Cameron dry in a hot summer. So 250,000, I mean, you know, forget it.
Can I just come back on that? There's just been a report published this week from Water Resources East, who are working, the group of organisations which was originally set up by Anglian Water, who produced a regional water plan, and they are basically saying that there isn't enough water in the area. But there's also the other side that Anglian Water also, there were a lot of concerns about Anglian Water as a sewage, you know, on the sewage side in terms of polluting our rivers. And there's the knowledge that, you know, this is a water company that's got huge debts and is looking for funding for their infrastructure. And they also run and fund the Cam Ely Ouse partnership, which runs the talk streams, you know, different organisations involved in that. So there's a lot of, like, how much do we trust these water companies? You know, that.
Yep. Well, I'm sure you're right, Elliot.
We don't trust them.
No, we don't. I mean, I was thinking, you know, we're at the end of, come to the end of COP28. And if COP28 shows one thing, it's that people have completely disconnected. A lot of people, a lot of very rich people have completely disconnected from the natural world. And that disconnect, which enables a COP which is meant to be saving us to actually be run by major oil producers and to produce a final issue a final statement which plays down the need and the rapidity with which we have to sever ourselves from fossil fuels. That attitude is the same attitude as we have here, which is a disconnect from the ecological limits, which should be saying, how many people can live here? How many people can live here healthily? Elliot, and then I've noticed Janny at the back. Elliot? Yes, the mic is on your way.
Amazing, sorry, this leads on very nicely. Yeah, I'm a city councillor in Abbey, Elliot Tong. I just want to say, firstly, it was an amazing film. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it, especially the stuff on Cambridge's history. Super fascinating stuff. One of the things I would have loved to see a bit more on, however, is to kind of delve a bit deeper into what Tony Booth was just talking about, which is how our relationship with water as a commodity, at least that's how it is, you know, given to us, how that has become like it is. Does it speak to a more fundamental problem with our economic setup? And perhaps we can look into like heterodox methods of economic thought for how we've become so alienated from the way we interact with water and use water.
Do you want to respond? Monica?
Well, it's really a comment rather than a question.
Yeah. Janny?
Listen.
Oh, sorry, and Jean next after that. But I had noticed.
The real problem I feel we face in Cambridge is that the actual planning departments and the local plan have a presumption of growth. Everything is put against that, you know, as if that is a good that we all agree with, you know. And when you challenge that, you know, you get absolutely nowhere. And there are a whole series of planning, I can't think what they're called, planning rules, whatever, which every time something is proposed, people, the actual communities of Cambridge, do the forensic work to actually challenge that these planning principles are being broken. And still, it goes ahead, It's very, very discouraging. I mean, anybody who's been involved in fighting on planning, it's just soul-destroying, and the amount of work that you put into these challenges is unbelievable. It's all voluntary, it's hours, it's weeks, and it's, we've spent years fighting over the various schemes that have come up in Petersfield around St. Matthew's Peace. Every single one, every single time someone's come forward, we have challenged it, and we have won until the next minute, the next year, when another one comes up, and we have to fight it all over again.
Okay.
So what I'm saying is, we need to challenge this whole concept of growth, and we need to get the councillors to actually do their job.
A councillor wants to speak, and then I think you want to say something. Well, come in afterwards, if that's okay.
Hi everybody. Is it working now? Yeah?
Yeah.
Right, yes, so I am a councillor for Newham Ward, but I just wanted to, and I totally agree with everything that you've said there. I have been involved in lots of campaigns now, and I recognise a lot of you from the campaigns I've been involved in. But I just wanted to tell you a little bit about why we started Friends of the Cam a few years ago, and it was because Wendy and Tony and Monica and Ian and a couple of other people, we were going to meetings about the Cambridge local plan. We went to lots and lots of meetings that were all discussing this huge growth, and the council had commissioned Stantec to look into the water supply and the water issues, and the Stantec report made very clear that we don't have enough water for the population that we've got here now. So it was like, and every meeting that we went to just seemed to ignore that. It was like the elephant in the room, that these plans for this huge growth were being just continued like a juggernaut, regardless of the fact that we knew we didn't have enough water. So that's why we started Friends of the Cam, because we wanted to raise awareness of this issue. And now it is an issue, and everybody's aware of it, and it's a national issue now, isn't it? And I think it still comes down to, I think what you said about the presumption in favour of development in planning terms is, it is a major problem, except that the National Planning Policy Framework does actually say that we must support sustainable development. And this development is not sustainable. We can all see that. So I think that we need to be pushing that we look, first of all, at what is sustainable, then what can we develop, rather than the other way round, which is what's happening at the moment, where development is going on regardless, and then they're looking at how can we mitigate this. And actually, from what we've seen here, that was a fantastic film, Tony, and actually I think very moving. And we can see that we can't mitigate it. We can't mitigate growth on this kind of scale. It's a disaster. So we do have to challenge it. So let's challenge it.
Yeah, I just wanted to agree with the lady at the back that basically, Jenny, we can't have infinite growth on a finite planet, and at the moment it's still a mantra that everybody is talking about. We need growth. We don't need growth. What we need is sustainability, and I think there's only one political party that's actually arguing for that, which is the Green Party.
Hi, I'm Simon, a local resident. I've got a couple of very specific questions.
Because you've talked a lot about the water companies, but very little about farming. And what's the total abstraction for agriculture in the same area that Cambridge Water supplies?
It's quite small.
Is it? Good. And the second question is on the effect of metering. So I wonder how much I would reduce my water consumption if it was really measured and I was paying for it by volume. Because most of my discretionary use is for things like showers and baths, for which I heat the water, and I pay much more for the electricity or the gas for heating than I do for the water itself. So do we have water metering by proxy already?
Yes, you do. You either have a water meter, in which case you pay on the amount of water that you use, or if you don't have a water meter, then you pay based on the rateable value of the property. But, I mean, can we do a quick survey? How many people have water meters? And how many people know what their water usage is in the last month? Oh, we seem to have lost a number of hands. Really, we need to have much better awareness of how much water each of us uses.
Can I tell you how I know?
Can you tell us through a microphone?
Yeah, microphone. How I know is I was addressed by Cambridge Water, I think it was last year, with a bill which bear no resemblance even though I had a meter. They decided that, sent me a letter to say I need a new meter. The thing was they did not believe that I was using such a small amount of water, and also were rather aggravated about this because they weren't getting so much money as they might have been from me. And when I rang up, they told me, well, you're a single person and the average single person household uses, and quoted some huge figure which was not near mine. Anyway, they replaced the meter and promised that then things would settle down. They would believe it, if you know, but being a new meter, which they sort of didn't, and kept producing these bigger bills, even though I quoted the meter read. So that's how I know how many cubic meters I use, because I have to keep telling them, no, my reading is X. The other thing is, the reason why they're not knowing now is they used to read the meter remotely with the van that came round, but now they don't do it, and they're not impelled to do it. They're only every 2 years. So they've stopped meter readings, and a lot of people are going to get bills based on, you know. But yes, it's cheap water. It is cheap, but there's no interest in doing the logical thing, which is, as you say, to charge little for the first so many, or at least on a sliding scale, and then more for the if you use more. And their reasons against doing it are quite nonsense. They could still do it for those with meters.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Does somebody wants to ask a question just over to the left? Or make a statement up.
Good evening. Thank you so much, Tony. What a fantastic film. I love your calm demeanour throughout the whole thing in presenting such an awful crisis we all face. I have two questions really. Having made the movie, I wondered if you could tell us how you now feel about it when you watch it and you hear people's reactions. And secondly, I think the key message that you want to get out there is to get this film watched by as many people as possible. I'd love to know how you're going about doing that and how we can all help. My name is Bob Ench. I live over near Great Bradley, actually, and I'm a member of the Green Party. And, you know, I'm very worried about this issue.
Okay, thanks for the questions, Bob. I mean, to answer the second one first, yeah, we're keen to get it out into as many community groups, schools, colleges as we can. So far, I've had about 20 requests. I'm sure not all of them will happen, but it's a fair number. So there are screenings coming up tomorrow at Clay Farm, and then in the new year at Eddington, at Sawston, and at Wilbraham. So do please tell your friends and colleagues and anyone who you think ought to. benefit from seeing this film to go and see it. And if you think there's any other groups, as I said before, who would be interested in seeing it, then do get in touch and be happy to try and arrange a screening. And the first question was, how do I feel now about seeing it? Well, the film took 4 years to make, and I think when we started out, we had no idea that every time you open a newspaper or turn on the radio now, there will be a story about water. It's clearly something that's become more and more to the fore, and so, yes, I do feel more and more distressed about the water situation.
I just wondered if, Liz, if you could say something about the other water company, which features a little but not very strongly in the film, which is Anglian Water, and in some ways it illustrates the fantasy land in which these companies are operating at the moment. Liz, you could say.
Hi, my name is Liz Cotton and I am involved in the campaign called Save Honey Hill. Have you all heard of it? And has anybody not heard of it? Because that would be right. So if you want to send a message to our councillors and the government about the Cambridge growth agenda, then get behind our campaign, because it is being now the relocation of Cambridge sewage plant. The plan is now with the Planning Inspectorate, and they are examining it all, and they're going through hearings. And the reason that the government is saying that the relocation of Cambridge sewage plant from the core site in North Cambridge, Cowley Road, to Honey Hill, above a principal chalk aquifer, I'd like to add, is because it is going to, this infrastructure is going to save the country's economy, because Cambridge is going to save the country with this growth agenda. It's true, it's absolutely true. There are hearings online where you can hear the Homes England chap talk all about that and why it should be pushed through. Fortunately, the Planning Inspectorate is doing a very, very good job at turning over every stone and questioning this very dubious relocation, which you, the taxpayer, you will be paying Anglian Water £227 million to relocate a sewage plant that they admit they don't need to move to Honey Hill. That means transfer tunnel under the River Cam, 20 metres deep, 24 metres wide, pushing all of the sewage to a new plant. It's going to be bigger than the size of Wembley. And all of this is because they say they want to develop North East Cambridge, of course, next to Cambridge train station. And it's all about, of course, developing that area. And they have called the core site, which is where our sewage plant currently is and has been for over 100 years, the most sustainable location for housing in Cambridge. And that is because the council's definition of most sustainable is about it being near a train station. And when questioned in the hearings by the planning inspectors, who were doing a fantastic job just a few weeks ago, did you take into account, when you decided that this was the most sustainable location in Cambridge, did you take into account the carbon cost of demolishing the sewage plant and rebuilding a new one, and the transfer tunnel, and reconfiguring a massive junction at junction 34 of the A14? Did you consider this? And did you take into account that you will also be building on Greenbelt? And the councillor said, no. And then, do you know what the planning inspector said? He said, what if you were to measure all of this and realise that actually, when you measured all that carbon cost, it turned out that that site was not the most sustainable, in the true sense of the word, location for housing? And the councillor replied, well, that is a very interesting question, isn't it? So we've been getting through all our money with donations paid for the lawyer. I'm hurrying up, sorry. But if we have to take it further into the courts, because the Secretary of State just says it's got to go ahead anyway, then please, please, please donate. We'll need money, and it's a really worthwhile cause. Thanks very much. Sorry for talking so long.
Sorry, there's a question at the back there. I mean, you do know the City Council is in partnership with Anglian Water in order to facilitate this move. Everybody should know that. So when the City Council say they're very concerned about the water situation, you kind of know that they're so concerned that they want to partner with Anglian Water to populate the green belt. We're going to have this.
Hello, hi. My name's Katie Preston. First of all, I wanted to say thank you very much indeed. That's the second time I've seen your film, and it was really worth seeing again. Thank you very much. The second thing is that I really want to applaud what Liz Cotton just said, because actually she preempted and answered my question, which was, yes, I think we should all have smart meters, but that really is peripheral to the main problem. And I think that what Liz Cotton has exemplified for us is where we should be putting our resources, because what I wanted to know is how do we actually try to deal with the two major issues, which is the growth, the abstraction and the growth of Cambridge. So I'd like to endorse what she just said, and let's put all our efforts and resources into this Honey Hill campaign, because that will both, I hope, help with the whole issue and will actually push this agenda further and further into the national interests and hopefully into national government. And so we might start to get some real traction on solving the overall problem. So thank you very much.
I realise how the time is going, and we don't have that much time left. I wonder, maybe the panel would like to sort of say a few final words. Is there anyone who has an absolute burning question? Is something that we haven't covered? Otherwise, would people just have a few final words? What would you like to say?
Well, two things. I was struck by a report, it was in 2020, it was the National Environment Framework Summary, and had in this fact in it was that that the South East required 50% of UK's national water supply needs. That was the needs for the South East. So it just seems to me, yes, we're told that Cambridge is going to be the powerhouse of the UK economy, but that's such a price to pay. We're not only we haven't got enough water. We've had a major report published by Water Resources East who said we haven't got enough water, and where is all that water going to come from? Because that has implications for other regions in the UK, and it also has implications of spending on infrastructure for the rest of the UK. This is not levelling up. This is not about equality. This is about making people in a certain part of the UK who are already, in many respects, better off than other parts of the UK, better off.
I'll just come back to what Rob Bakell said in your film, which is basically we're faced with a choice. You choose growth or the environment. If we choose growth, then we have to accept the fact that all those beautiful images of those new housing developments with all the green trees, the trees will not be there. We're going to have a desert in this part of the country if all this growth happens.
What you haven't mentioned is that Cambridge also has a big subsidence issue. I don't believe anybody's found insurance claims hitting their houses and their roads. That is going to only get worse.
I'd just like to thank everyone who's shown up tonight. It's lovely to see so many people concerned about water and thinking about water, and some great questions that we had this evening. There are a number of groups which have already formed to try and take action concerned with water. I have to mention Friends of the Cam, who've put on this event this evening. But there are other groups, such as the Cam Valley Forum, such as the Friends of the Groundtail, there's a few others. So if you go onto the website, you will see these groups. So if you're not already a member of any of these water groups, or indeed of Save Honey Hill, then please do go and join them. They need your support, and being around like-minded folk does wonderful for your health.
Tony, you sort of did my job for me, which is really nice, because there are too many jobs already in Cambridge, so one less now. But I also have to thank you for producing this wonderful film. 4 years of wonderful labour, and you can tell it's hugely appreciated. Thank you, Wendy. Thank you, Monica, for your contributions. Thank you, everybody, for coming along. It's wonderful to get such a huge, enthusiastic crowd, and I suppose it's only a small answer to you, Janny, that this is what we do. It is really tough, so we have to get together like this and share the little bits that add together to make something that we maybe can do to push back on the lunacy, the madness, the foolishness, the fantasy which we have about the future of Cambridge. It's our city. These are our rivers. I say that all of our ancestors flow past, some part of all of our ancestors flow past us in our rivers every day. This is our city, and we have to come together to make it a sustainable and sensible and livable and lovely city together. So thank you for coming.